Hi, good morning, everyone. And I hope that those of you who are here aren't sitting here with a headache after last night's function. I will try not to speak too loudly if you are. So, welcome, everyone. I'd like to know here today if any of you remember a time when you were a child and your mom and dad used to tuck you into bed at night and you used to close your eyes and dream and go off into a whole new world as they read your favorite bedtime story to you. I'm sure at that time in your life, you knew that you could be anyone or anything that you wanted to be. Are you still that excited little child, or is this where you've ended up? As a librarian, are you maybe feeling a little lost or a little stuck? Maybe you've forgotten why you trained to become an information professional in the first place. Maybe you're feeling a little undervalued and underappreciated. Well, please stop thinking like that, because today is the day that I'm going to make sure that each and every single one of you realize that you're a real superhero. Can I have a show of hands right now? How many of you here became librarians and information professionals because of a love that you have for reading? That's what I want to see. And by a show of hands, how many of you in this room today have someone who inspired you to start reading? A parent, a teacher, maybe even a librarian. Fantastic. My big question today is whether you are the ones that are inspiring others to read. I'm going to get you guys to put your hands up a lot today. It keeps the energy going. So I'm going to ask you to put your hands up if anybody in this room today has read a book or even many books that have completely changed your thinking and possibly even set you on a brand new course in your life. Fantastic. That's most of us. And how many of you have used your skills as librarians to help set others on a brand new course in their life? Fantastic. How many of you in this room today believe that it is your purpose in life to help others make giant steps in their lives? Yay, okay. So we've got a united front here. Oh, not the pointer, the clicker. Sorry, I missed a slide. So I'm here today to make sure in a really big way that you as librarians are inspired readers, and that in turn you are inspiring your communities, your colleagues, your family, your friends to feed their minds on the transformational power of reading. I don't know if you know this, but as librarians, you have the power, a unique power, to help people realize that where they are today isn't necessarily where they have to stay. I absolutely love this quotation by Neil Gaiman, and I'm sure that many of you have seen it before, and it goes like this. It says, Google can bring you back 100,000 answers. A librarian can bring you back the right one. As librarians, you are the soul of the library. You have the skills and the knowledge to bring back the right answers. And you have the ability to inspire both the reluctant reader and the keenest reader. You have the power alone to create lifelong readers and instill strong research skills in your people. You rule your own democracy in your library, where everyone is welcome. There are no barriers to entry. Your library is a treasure chest of knowledge. It's a ticket to new worlds. It's a doorway to new thought processes. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's a sanctuary for people who have nowhere else to go. Isn't that powerful? What a legacy you can leave with the world. Would it be okay if I took a couple of minutes just to tell you all a short story about how I developed my love for reading and how books changed my life? Would that be okay? Fantastic. So this lady over here is my mother. Don't you think she's beautiful? Sadly, my mom is no longer with us, but while she was here on earth and in the short time that I got to spend with her, she taught me so much about books and reading. Now, when I was growing up as a little girl, my brother and I were raised by my mom, and my mom and dad were divorced. And the sad thing was that my mom was suffering from the onset of a mental disorder known as Huntington's chorea. And I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but what Huntington's does is it starts in your early 30s and it starts eating your mind. It eats your brain away, and eventually it eats your body away. So the problem was that because my mom was suffering from Huntington's chorea, she could never find decent paying work. And because she was a single mom, there wasn't much money in our house. So the last thing she could afford to do was buy us books. But one thing that my mom did was every second Saturday, she took my brother and I to the library. Now, my mom didn't have a car and she couldn't drive. So the library was about 5 kilometers from our house, and off my brother and I would go with my mom, and we'd walk off to the library. And for me, that walk to the library was a walk to freedom. It was a walk into a whole new world. My brother and I used to walk into the library, and we used to run to the children's book section, and we'd run our hands along the rows of books, eager to pick out those 3 books that we were allowed to take out that day. Those books were my salvation. Being able to escape into the world of a book, given the current circumstances in my life, was an experience like no other. So my mother, as ill as she was, she managed to foster a real love of reading in my brother and I, and I'm forever grateful to her for that. So because of my mom, not only did I develop a passion for reading, I ended up majoring in English at university. I went on to open my own bookshop and later an online bookshop, and now I'm writing my first book. There's one thing I know for sure, and that's if you want to find paradise, you start your search in the library. So getting back to my childhood, when I was at school, when I was in primary school, I didn't have many friends because my mom was a bit odd and we didn't really come from a normal background, and we certainly didn't come from money, unlike many of my friends that I went to school with. And I had one friend, and this one friend that I had suddenly started taking ill. And what would happen is at break time, you know how kids are, everyone gets into their groups and sits together and plays and chats. And when my friend was off, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't have a group to join. So what I used to do was I'd walk up to the library and I'd sit down on one of the carpets and I'd take out a children's book and I'd read that until the break bell rang. So for me, the library was my sanctuary. And as librarians, how many people are you even aware of that are using your library as their sanctuary? This is such a beautiful quote by George Martin, and it goes like this: "A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one." So my question to you today is, are you inspiring people to read, or are you merely being a custodian of knowledge? I'm sure that many of you are all pretty familiar with the usual excuses for not reading, and you don't have to raise your hand, but you may have even used some of these excuses yourself. If you're working in an academic library, you're probably going to find that students are taking books out because they have to. They're not reading because they want to. And as librarians, with all the researching that you do every day, how much time do you actually get to read for pleasure? Here are some of the typical excuses that people have for not reading, and if you know of any more, please come and share them with me after my session today. And they go like this: I'm too busy, I don't have the time, I don't have the space for books, I'm a slow reader, I need to see an optometrist first. And one of the big ones, I don't know what to read. So many times people don't know what to read because they haven't found a topic that thrills them yet. Look at Harry Potter. Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling got millions of non-readers reading. And it's your job as librarians to help introduce this kind of material into the lives of people that aren't reading. If you're not reading, and you're not fostering a love of reading in others, then I truly believe that you're doing humanity a huge disservice. Let's take a look at these facts. The number one positive thing about reading is that reading gives everyone, and I mean everyone, an equal chance in life. Literate people have options. I'm sure you'll all agree with that. And illiterate people, well, I don't think I need to go any further on that one. A beautiful thing about a literate society is that it has little or no criminality. There was a talk a couple of years ago in New York where the prison industry was discussing their future growth and how many prison cells they'd need in, say, 10 to 15 years' time. How are they going to work that out? Well, actually, all they had to do was look at the current levels of education and look at the percentage of children who weren't able to read. The percentage of 10 and 11-year-olds at the time. You can guess where those children would be in their 20s, and it's a scary thought. According to Eric Schmidt of Google, every 2 days, think about this, every 2 days we produce as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization until the year 2003. That's every 2 days. And I've been told that that's equal to 5 exabytes of data every single day. So we've gone from a world where information was a scarce resource into one in which there is now an information glut. We're actually being presented with too much information. A few years ago, it was actually said that we're now living in a post-literate world where it is no longer important for us to make sense out of the written word. But fortunately, those days are gone. Words are more important now than they ever were. And with all the information being published on the internet every day, it is so important for us to be able to read and to be able to understand the information that we're reading and to be able to understand each other. If people stop reading, what is going to happen to the human race? I don't even want to answer that question. I mean, don't all of you just want to run out of the room right now and climb onto the top of Birchwood Hotel and scream, "Read!" to everyone out there? I do. At this point, I'd love to share an excerpt from my favorite childhood book, which later became a movie, and I'm sure many of you in this room will get goosebumps if you ever watched this movie as a child. But this movie talks all about the power of reading. Enjoy.
Which way? That way!
Get out of here! I don't like kids. Are you still here? Did you hear what I said, boy?
I was so...
You're hiding, aren't you?
No, I was just...
The video arcade is down the street. Here we just sell small rectangular objects. They're called books. They require a little effort on your part and make no beep, 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 beeps. On your way, please.
I know books. I have 186 of them at home.
Ah, comic books.
No, I've read Treasure Island, Last of the Mohicans, Wizard of Oz, Lord of the Rings, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Tarzan...
Whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you running away from?
Just some kids from school.
Why?
They want to throw me in the garbage.
Why don't you give them a good punch in the nose?
Well, I don't know. What's that book about?
Oh, this is something special.
Well, what is it?
Look. Your books are safe. By reading them, you get to become Tarzan or Robinson Crusoe.
But that's what I like about him.
But afterwards you get to be a little boy again.
What do you mean?
Listen. Have you ever been Captain Nemo, trapped inside your submarine while the giant squid is attacking you?
Yes,
Weren't you afraid you couldn't escape?
but it's only a story.
That's what I'm talking about. The ones you read are safe.
And that one isn't?
Don't worry about it.
But you just said it was...
Forget about it. This book is not for you.
So for those of you who haven't seen the movie, how many of you in the room today thought that he snuck that book out of the bookshop and went on to have the most amazing adventure in his entire life? Because he did. As an adult, I used to think that reading fiction, which is essentially reading for pleasure, was not as sophisticated as reading non-fiction. I thought that storybooks served no real purpose other than to while away the time while you were lying next to the beach on holiday with a cocktail glass in your hand. But I've learned something over the years about reading fiction. Reading fiction prepares us for life's experiences before we even get to experience them. And how? Through the characters in the books that we read. A marvelous thing about fiction is that if you happen to be in a difficult place in your life, these books offer you a temporary escape. Opening a book is like opening a door and seeing the sunlight outside. These books give you the skills and the knowledge and the tools to escape from your reality for real. Another beautiful thing about reading fiction is that it teaches us to keep going, even if it's hard. We need to turn the page because somebody's in trouble, and we've got to find out how the story ends. While we're reading, we're being forced to learn new words and to think new thoughts in order to get to the end of the book. We get to feel new things. We get to travel to whole new worlds, places that we may have never traveled to ever in our lives before, and maybe not even during our lifetime here on earth. When we're transported into the imaginary world of a book, we become somebody else. And when we come back slightly changed. I'm sure there's people in the room today that have put down a book and gone, shoo. And the world is different. And that's what reading fiction does to you. It makes you realize that things don't have to be like this, that the world can be different. Do you know that the majority of inventors, think of modern day people that work at Facebook and Google, do you know what books they were reading as children? The majority of them were reading science fiction. And this is proof that if you can imagine, you can invent. Once you realize that reading is pleasurable, you're on the road to reading everything. Let's have a look at the ending of the never-ending story. Another short snippet. And this kind of will show you how powerful your imagination really can become when you're reading.
Where is he? If he's so close, why doesn't he arrive? He doesn't realize he's already a part of the never-ending story. The never-ending story? What's that? Just as he is sharing all your adventures, others are sharing his. They were with him when he hid from the boys in the bookstore. But that's impossible! They were with him when he took the book, with the orange symbol on the cover, in which he's reading his own story right now. I can't believe it. They can't be talking about me. What will happen if he doesn't appear? Then our world will disappear. And so will I. How could he let that happen? He doesn't understand that he's the one who has the power to stop it. He simply can't imagine that one little boy could be that important. Is it really me? Maybe he doesn't know what he has to do. What do I have to do? He has to give me a new name. He's already chosen it. He just has to call it out. It's only a story. It's not real. It's only a story. Atreyu, no! Atreyu! Bastian. Why don't you do what you dream, Bastian? But I can't. I keep my feet on the ground. Call my name. Bastian. Please. Save us. All right. I'll do it. I'll save you. I will do what I say.
Shoo. So his mom had died when he was a little boy, and her name was Moonchild. And he had to rename the Empress, and he gave her his mother's name, which I thought was really beautiful. So that was what he was screaming out at the end. And Fantasia was saved. Then we move on to nonfiction. So reading nonfiction books is probably the most powerful way of injecting new thoughts into your mind and really getting your grey matter zinging. You don't need to get a degree to get an education. Reading is an extremely affordable and accessible way of educating yourself. But how many people out there actually know this? Books are a way of communicating with the dead. We're able to learn lessons from the minds of those who are no longer with us, the people that helped grow and shape humanity. If you ever read personal development material, you'll find that reading gets you thinking out of the box. So you stop living your life like a hamster on a wheel, doing the same thing day in and day out and getting yourself deeper into a rut. Why? Because it changes your perspective. And it helps you believe and realize that you can achieve and be more than you ever dreamed possible. Are you opening the doors for people in your sphere of influence who might not possibly have access to some form of tertiary education? And if you are, I would like you to raise your hand right now and give the person on either side of you a high five. And here's one for me to all of you for doing fantastic work. Well done. That's divine. Funny enough, there's many people out there who have this misconception that if you're reading to improve yourself, that there's something wrong with you. After all, aren't you supposed to be perfect just as you are? Well, just for the record, wanting to become more than you are is not a sign of weakness. Oh no. In fact, it's actually a sign of incredible strength. So we should all be reading. We should be reading good quality books every single day, and we should be encouraging every person in our sphere of influence to do the same. Books quite literally change lives, and reading is more important now than it ever was. And you, as librarians, the custodians of knowledge, can only inspire others to read if you are yourself an inspired reader, and you sharing that knowledge of how you were inspired. So for non-readers, the thought of picking up a book might seem as exciting as bungee jumping down the Victoria Falls into a crocodile-infested river. So how do you get other people to start reading? Look, the trick is, don't present them with a copy of the longest book ever written. And I actually believe there's a book, I think it's called Understanding Women, that is about that long. Instead, what you do is you give the information to them in bite-sized chunks. And this is how you do it. Tell them that if they just had to read 10 pages of a good book every day, it would only take them 10 to 15 minutes. In a year, they would have read 3,650 pages. Do you know that that equates to 15 to 20 books a year? So you can take people from being non-readers to being readers by just telling them to use 10 minutes a day to spend some time reading a good book. I have a really busy life. I really don't have time to watch television. I get to bed at about 10 p.m. every night. But what I do before I fall asleep is I have a book on my bedside table and I make sure I pick it up and I put my 10 pages in a day. Because I know it's not easy to find the time in our busy schedules to read. What I also do is I download audiobooks or I buy audiobooks on CD, and while I'm driving to the office and I'm driving home, even while I'm driving to client meetings, I have an audiobook playing in my car. And then I download ebooks to my smartphone so that while I'm waiting for meetings to start, or I'm at my favorite place, and I hope there's no one here that represents SARS, if anyone sat there for a while. It's a great time to catch up on reading. The trick is to make accessible as many books as possible in as many formats as possible. And this is what you need to be encouraging other people to start doing. You make books as accessible as possible in as many formats as possible. The key to all of this is it's teaching people on how to really maximize their time so that reading becomes as routine as brushing your teeth. And I hope that everyone here does brush their teeth routinely. So if you're not doing this yourself, if you're not an active daily reader, then this is what you need to do yourself so that you can become an inspired reader. So, how are we going to get past all our excuses for non-reading? And in turn, how are we going to use these, how are you going to become an inspired reader, and how are you going to get others to become inspired readers themselves? Well, we're going to break the pattern. We have a fantastic 8-step program that you can follow and you can give others to follow. And this is how it goes. 8 steps to a new you. You're going to switch off the TV. You're going to unplug the internet. Try leaving the cell phone to charge in the kitchen at night, not on your bedside table. It's a distraction. Ignore the neighbor in the tight jeans if you're lucky enough to have one. Switch off the husband or the wife or the children. Go to bed 30 minutes earlier, but don't fall asleep. Pick up a book and read 10 pages a day. Use your drive time to listen to audiobooks and keep ebooks handy on your smartphone so that you can fill up empty waiting time. And while we're busy transforming our own lives through reading, we need to bring this knowledge home. By show of hands in the room today, how many of you have young children? Wow, that's a lot. And how many of you are reading to your children? Okay. Whether you're reading to your children or not, let's have a look at this quote by Albert Einstein, one of history's greatest thinkers and a man who helped reshape our ideas about how the universe works. And he said, "If you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales." This great man understood the value of reading and imagining. Look at everything he accomplished in his lifetime. So I hope that we can take the knowledge that we've gained here today, applied in our own lives, take it home to our communities, to our colleagues, to our friends, to our family. But let's hand this knowledge down to our children, because we want to give them a world in which they will read and be read to, so that they too can imagine and understand and be exactly the kind of people that our country needs right now. Thank you.